What's the one thing in your life? What's the one most important thing? Well, you know what? That's a pretty big question. I'm Jeffrey Paul, and I'm here with your morning inspiration, and we're going to dive into the depth of what is the one thing. People are searching all over the world, searching all over the globe for that one thing, for that one thing in their life. Well, there's a teaching of a real life experience where Mary and Martha, out of Luke chapter 10, get the answer to the one thing. This morning I was going through my journaling and going through my process of my day timer, and I try to be really disciplined. I got done with my exercise, and I checked that off in my day timer, and I went through the process of getting my coffee ready, and I got my vitamins out, and all those things, all those things. And I finally finally sat down. I started reading a devotional and went through that, and it was really good. I found some really good things, and then it led me to another thing, and led me to another thing. I was even on the internet to find some of the things that I was learning and finding the people that were teaching it. Whew. There was a dust storm around me. It reminded me like Peanuts, that kid that would walk and he'd have a dust flying everywhere he would go. And I began writing to the Father in my journal. I said, Father, how can I focus on the one thing? There's so many voices, there's so many things to do, there's so many opportunities, there's so many voices. And I finally silenced those voices and listened to his voice. And he began to pour out to me some of the most incredible things that you can imagine. And I want to share those with you today. Because in the story of Mary and Martha, the answer in a very few verses, and I've told you this before, all the answers are in the scriptures. You may not 100% believe that, but all of the scriptures are filled with illumination of the steps that you need to take, but that takes one step at a time. And if you're scattered, if you're, going in multiple directions, if you're like all of us that have so many things to do and so many places to go, the reality is that truly you're lost. You're using so much energy. You're using so much of your love and your compassion to really just feed a whole lot of other things that are not feeding you. That are not giving you what you need to do. So let's get to Mary and Martha. You know the story. Martha's got a beautiful home. She invites Jesus and the entire gang over for dinner. That's a big, I mean, we have spaghetti dinners every Sunday, and we got a pretty big family that all come together, thank God. But can you imagine 12 disciples, Jesus, and whoever else came through the door? She was preparing the meal for everybody because she really loved Jesus. But her sister, Mary, was nowhere to be found. She wasn't in the kitchen. She wasn't in the pantry. She wasn't cooking. She wasn't. Where is Mary? Martha's saying, I'm doing all this work. I'm taking care of all these people. And this is all for Jesus. This is all for Jesus. So she finally goes into the living room where Jesus is teaching. And lo and behold, where's Mary? Right at his feet. Right at his feet. And she comes over, interrupts the Bible study. Can you imagine that? She is so frustrated. She's got her apron on. She probably got a little flour on her forehead. And the reality is that she goes, Jesus, don't you realize I am taking care of all your gang, and I want to bless you with a wonderful meal. And my sister Mary is not even helping me. Do you realize how many things I have to do? And let's see what Jesus had to say to her in Luke chapter 10, verse 41 and 42 out of the Amplified Version. But the Lord replied to her, Martha, Martha, you are worried and bothered and anxious about so many things, but only one thing is necessary. For Mary has chosen the good part, that which is to her advantage, which will not be taken away from her. Wow. What was he talking about? She was remaining in him, as John 15:7, and you've probably been here even more one other time, have heard me use that scripture because it's my paramount scripture. Remain in me and allow my voice to remain in you. That's the one thing. That's the one thing. After you've accepted him, and after you've let him come into your house, Martha and Mary, after you've asked him to live in you, it is a necessity to remain at his feet, listening to him, dialoguing with him, getting to know him better, and let him let you know how he knows you best. There's one thing. There's really one thing. And it isn't a question mark of which one of the things you need to do. It's one thing. And the one thing is absolutely to listen to his voice, to put all your energies in listening to his voice. Does that mean I don't go to work, Jeff? Does that mean that I don't take care of my household? I don't cut the grass. I just have a Bible study. No, not at all. God has gone through the Bible many, many times with regards to how you need to be responsible to your family, responsible for your work, he's the Bible has those answers to those kind of questions that try to take you off the track. Then what is it? The 24/7, the 24/7, you are seeking to hear his voice. 24/7, you are dialoguing with him. You are continually within his presence, and he is holding you at his feet within his presence so that you can hear his voice clearly, discerning his voice. See, David even said, even while I sleep, your voice speaks to me. So if you're really seeking to know the one thing in your life that is the most important, that will get you to the heights, get you to your destiny, get you to the best life you can live in this fallen world, then the one thing is to hear his voice, discern his voice, read his word, and continue to put it into application in your life. I hope that buzzes you. It buzzed me this morning because I was buzzing around in my to do and my things to do and my list. If I showed you my list, it probably would overwhelm you. But the reality was when he settled me down and he sat me at his feet and I began to dialogue with him, and he began to truly stop the world around me and really allow me to hear his voice. And he said this out of Isaiah 30. He said, this is the way, walk in it. Isaiah 30, verse 21. This is the way, walk in it. And it is to remain in me, dialogue with me, share with me, work with me, play with me, continue to do all that you do and be with me and allow me to show you the very beautiful way to live your life. If you feel the sense of that word speaking to you this morning, please put in the comments. Put in the comments right now, the way. Just put the words, the way. And now you don't have to put a question mark behind it. You know that he has told us this morning the way. As he told Martha and Mary, the way is to remain in him, to hear his voice, to dialogue with him, to find it precious, to be in his presence, to ask him the questions, not Google. Doesn't mean you can't use Google, and it doesn't mean you don't need to use Siri, but the reality of your life, the real life, the spiritual life that we live on this earth that we are in but not of, needs to have one thing, needs to have one thing. And that one thing that's the highest priority above all other priorities, which doesn't mean you don't have other priorities, but the highest priorities, as Steve Covey said, first things first, aligns your life so that you can walk the way that he has shown you to walk. And that's the best path, because he's promised out of Jeremiah 29, 11 through 14, he has a plan for you, a plan not to harm you, but to prosper you and bless you and bring you right into the gates of heaven if you listen to his voice and say, yes, Lord, to the way he's showing you. Have a beautiful day. Let me know what you think. and have this shared on your Instagrams, on your Facebook, on your whatever, so that you can truly help others find out the one thing. In fact, put hash mark. Would you do that right now? Put hash mark one thing in the comments. Hash mark one thing. All capitals letters if you can. Hash mark one thing and send it out to the world so they really realize, wow, there is an answer. As Martha found, there's really an answer to one thing. Yes, there is. Have a beautiful day. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow.